Welcome back to Me, Myself, and Liberty. As you can see, I have a special guest with me today, David
Good to be with
Vann.
you.
Yes, he's joining me remotely from Tulsa, America. All right.
Absolutely.
Well, welcome. All right.
Glad to be
So,
here.
one thing you probably know is that when I have a guest on, I always do a little bit of, digging and see who they are and what they're about. And I'm always surprised by something. And there
Yeah.
was something about you that surprised me, but we'll get to that in just a second. So,
Yeah.
what I want you to do is tell us a little bit about you. I know you're from Minnesota originally, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And you've been in Oklahoma since 1980,
Yes.
and you're a former pastor, huh?
Absolutely. Came down here to go to Bible school. I was born in Minnesota, had no choice on that, but I'm Oklahoman by choice. And came down here to go to Bible school here in Tulsa and went back, pastored for a year, married my hometown sweetheart, and I said, let's go south.
Yes. Well, I'm glad that you did.
Yeah.
That was the right decision.
I feel good about it.
Okay, so you have three kids. They're all married and six grandkids.
Absolutely. The passion and joy of my life right now is my grandkids, and I'm open for more if my kids
Oh
are
yeah,
listening.
yeah. Oh yeah. There you go. No pressure at all, right?
Nah.
Okay. So you're a state committee member,
Yes, I am.
and okay, and executive vice president at Drug Policy Reform Network of Oklahoma. Can you tell me a
Yes.
little bit about that?
Yes. I just finished a term with the Tulsa Republican Assembly, and one of the meetings we had, about a year and a half ago, after Governor Fallon announced that she's going to go ahead and place the medical marijuana question on the ballot, a veteran came to me with PTSD, a very profound case. And he told me he's sick of the benzodiazepine tranquilizers that the VA was pumping him full of. And I knew about that because all my childhood, my father, Korean War veteran, was on tranquilizers. And I remember how much it limited his ability to enjoy life. So I had this young man, great guy, Cody Barlow, come and talk to the group. I also had some parents who really had a horror story, lost a son to a tragic accident that was impacted by his use of marijuana on a ski trip in Colorado. So once I saw that, and as a mental health activist, and knowing that we just weren't doing enough for on PTSD, especially with all the veterans coming back from multiple tours of duty, I said, why not? Because I'm seeing doctors really have success. So I decided it's time for a change. Didn't think it was the best bill, didn't think it was well written at all, but it's a starting point. And so that's it in a nutshell. It passed overwhelmingly and brought a lot of people to the polls. And now we're just trying to make it work.
Well, that's great. Yes, the PTSD. I know our family, my entire family is military, so we've
Mm-hmm.
been impacted by PTSD in my family.
Yeah.
So yes, that's good work there. Okay.
Yeah, and I might say on that, just a couple months before that vote, we lost sadly a veteran in Owasso, a northern suburb of Tulsa. His wife had to be the sole breadwinner, and he was doing terribly at home. She called the police, said, "Could you do a wellness check?" And so they came to the door, and typical police style, beating on the door. Police, please open up. And it threw him into a flashback. He sadly grabbed the gun. They shot and killed the man.
Oh,
That's
gosh,
terrible. So,
that is
yeah,
awful.
PTSD is deadly. It does kill. And we saw, a number of high profile cases, people working with PTSD sufferers, their lives are at risk doing
Yeah.
that. But yet at the same time, my father with PTSD, the best therapy for him was hunting and fishing. He taught
Mm-hmm.
all of his kids. And so I didn't want to take away his right to enjoy that by limiting his firearms access either,
Yeah.
you know.
It definitely affects everybody so
Yeah,
differently. I mean, and there's so many varying degrees. I had a
absolutely. Yeah,
friend who had served in Vietnam, and I
yeah,
remember being at dinner, and there was a loud noise, and
yeah,
you know, you see these things, people make fun of it, or you see it on TV where it's almost like a joke. But then when it happens, and you see somebody actually dive under the table while you're,
yes,
I mean,
yes.
that makes it, very
And
real for you.
and I want to say we have the best trained soldiers in the world. Probably the world's never had better trained, better equipped fighting forces. And if you watch the Bourne Identity movies, I know that's science fiction, but it shows you there is a limit when you overtrain somebody and then you put them on multiple tours. Because again, we're coming up on 20 years of
Yeah.
being at a state of war. In World War II, we didn't even spend 4 years in war.
Yeah.
So there is a cost to continued deployments over and over again.
Oh
So
yeah.
not I'll get off my soapbox on that, but it's part of the weighing the cost. I'm not anti-war. I'm just for counting the cost of that war.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. Okay, so there was something else, the interesting thing about you that I didn't know. So
Mm.
you were a Democrat. You're a former Democrat.
I was born in a Democrat home. And I tell you what, my dad was dyed in the wool, my mom, both activists as Democrats. So that's all I knew. And coming down here to go to Bible school really, really gave me an opportunity to see a culture that was, even though Oklahoma was prevailing Democrat more than Minnesota, was a much more conservative state and much more receptive to, at that time, the message of Ronald Reagan, which Oklahoma was in love with Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
But then shortly after I got married, even though at that point I pretty much was a conservative Reaganite, uh, Debbie and I had just gotten married, and all of a sudden, a few months later, we're going into the Iowa caucuses are happening, all these things. And I said, Debbie, we got to register to vote. So we go down to the election board, and I said, man, are we too late for the Republican caucuses? Because at that time, Oklahoma was not a primary state for president. We were a caucus state. And the election board here in Tulsa said, yeah, they already had their caucuses. Democrats are next week. So I said, oh, well, we'll register as Democrats. So we went there, and we went as, you could go as uncommitted, but if you don't have a threshold, 15%, you go home or you join some other caucus. And so the Jesse Jackson people still needed two more in order to make the threshold. And everybody in the room said, we got to keep Jesse in the race. He's registering the urban voters like nobody else. Please, please. So I said, okay, I'll be one if you can make me one of your two delegates. They said, oh, no, we won't make you a delegate. I said, okay, make me an alternate. They said, okay, we will. And sure enough, one of the delegates had to be out of town on business. And so I went to the Tulsa County Democrat Convention 1994 as one of two white Jesse Jackson supporters.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's
Well, I
funny.
have to tell you though, I walked out of that in protest holding a sign that I'd written on the spot, Democrats for Reagan. So I redeemed myself.
That's fine. I would love to have had a picture of that.
It was wonderful. I almost got
That's
beat
funny.
up by some UAW workers though.
Oh, I
Yeah,
bet. That's hilarious.
yeah.
Okay, so when I saw that you had been a pastor and that you had also been a Democrat, were you a pastor at the same time you were a Democrat? Because you know how, I'm one of those people that go, man, that's kind of a
I
conflict.
know. Well, I have to say, we have a lot of allies, especially in Minnesota, on the pro-life cause in the
Yeah.
Democrat Party. So you have to understand the context of different states. And Minnesota is very different. By the way, we're about to find out how interesting Minnesota is. Tomorrow night, Trump has a rally in Minneapolis, and it's going to be fireworks. But I'm getting off the track. So yeah, after my 2 years here in Bible school and then going back to Minneapolis, I went there as a full-fledged conservative and got involved in the elections of 82 there as a conservative. So it was just my opportunity to have an impact on the primary, and registering a week late made me do a simple little mess up the Democrats for a convention and then go back to the Republican base where I belong.
Well, that is very cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so before we go to break, I know you've got some breaking news for us.
Yeah.
So everybody stick around. We've got some breaking news when we come back from this break. Hi, I'm Leslie NesSmith, host of Me, Myself, and Liberty right here on OTU Media. I'd like to ask you to go to www.patreon.com/OTU Media to support us. By going to patreon.com, you are supporting everything that we do here at OTU Media and Oklahoma Taxpayers Unite. We are getting the word out, so join us.
Introducing all new, safe, natural relief. A cannabinoid-rich, clarity and focus formula with 17 essential supplements. When it matters most, you've got a job to do. Anxiety isn't an option. Programmed to keep you moving. A product exclusively manufactured for Active Duty RX by Cantech Labs.
Welcome back to Me, Myself, and Liberty. And as you know, David Vann is joining me today, and he has some breaking news. Before he goes to the breaking news, make sure you have tagged your friends and get everybody on here possible. That way you know what the breaking news is. All right. So, David, tell us about this news.
Yeah, this came to me last. A group called Grand Jury Justice is filing a citizen petition here in actually in Oklahoma County. There are a number of cases of corruption involving state elected office holders that have not been prosecuted or even sent to grand jury or had really significant investigation. Those include last summer with the State Pharmacy Board, the director, there is credible written open evidence of a bribery being offered to people at the state health department. That has not been prosecuted on the pharmacy board, even though she was fired by that state board. This is a government office. We've seen some things happening with Epic Charter, online charter school, where state officials appear to have used state resources in an attempt to defame and slander in libel this institution. That's being brought up. Another one's being brought up is some elected officials in our legislature that we have credible evidence of sexual harassment and criminal misconduct that we're looking into. And again, none of these are allegations that they have done it. It's that credible evidence has not been properly investigated. And so we're asking to take it out of David Prater's hands. I say we, the people who are doing this. And I've told them, yes, I want to help any way I can. So Brian Hobbs, the mayor of Newkirk, was upset that being up in Newkirk, he didn't have the authority to do it. He had to have somebody down in Oklahoma County, the seat of government. And so that got filed yesterday. It looks like it's going to be ready for petition gathering. Dispensaries around the state are just around the county. The whole state would love these dispensaries, love to, because keep in mind that bribery was an attempt to essentially not allow dispensaries to ever open, because economically it would have made it impossible, number one, and would have required a pharmacist who had a good knowledge on cannabis medicines, which none of them do. So I'm sorry, let me just stop there and get your feedback on this.
No, that's just crazy, because you remember hearing about these things and then nothing is ever done with them.
Yes.
The Epic charter school situation,
Yeah.
that's really interesting because I was, kind of wondering what happened there. Like
Yeah.
it's like it just disappeared.
Right.
So, okay, so let's take each one of those because I want to make
Yes.
sure that the audience understands what actually happened with that. So talk
Sure.
about the Epic charter school situation.
Sure. Now, what happened? There was a grand jury impaneled some 6 years ago to look into things, and the grand jury responded with no indictment, no credible storyline here of anything to prosecute. And so what happened is one of the people in that grand jury, who's a young man, I guess, from what I hear, moved to Oregon and claims that Epic was still collecting money from the state based on his enrollment. Um, and so they found out there's nothing to that. So what happened is somebody took that testimony and went to a judge this summer and said, hey, let's do another investigation. Well, there was no new news. What happened is at the time when families get ready to enroll for the next year, this was, according to the people here involved in it, this was just an attempt to drive down their enrollment. And by making a claim that they're over enrolling, the funny thing that came out in this is we found out Epic's not allowed to use any of those funny numbers. It's always been proven that the online charter schools are using this year's numbers for their state reimbursement. However, we find out the brick and mortar schools, by law, this is not illegal because our legislature set it up this way. By law, they're allowed to take the highest enrollment of the last 3 years and get paid based on that. So if a school district like Tulsa, which is bleeding enrollment, if their enrollment was 3,000 more kids 2 years ago than it is this year, they get paid based on 2 years ago. So those are the Go students, really. And everybody knew this. And even when the investigation came out with no credible claim here, Senator Sharp still went on the on media and said, no, they're guilty of all of these things. And so it's at the point now where the Epic Charter's founders have they have retained legal counsel for this. They're looking at what they're going to do, but nonetheless, this is coming from citizens who are sick of seeing this kind of corruption in our state office. And it's up to the people of Oklahoma County, the Oklahoma City area. They're the only ones now who have the authority to call for an open investigation in open court through a grand jury system.
Wow, that's just crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just more meaningless investigations. That's what we need,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And it's sad. And it seems to be coinciding with the time when families enroll their kids. Because here's the secret. Epic has, for the last 8 years, has grown in their enrollment by at least a third every year over the previous years.
Mm-hmm.
So now they are the third largest school district in Oklahoma. And it's one where parents get to keep their kids at home on the ranch, in the safe neighborhood, in a safe environment. They don't like the peer pressure. They don't like the bullying. They don't like a lot of the just ridiculousness going on in many of our public schools. And so I said, we'll feed our kid lunch. We'll provide, the basic stuff. They don't need the state to buy them a desk, and all this stuff. We'll do it with our own computers, our own internet access, and our kid gets an education. So that's kind of how Epic works. And that's the first one of 3 different areas of this grand jury asking for an investigation.
Okay. Now on the other one, the about the dispensaries, that issue, can you touch on that just a little bit more for the audience, because I have a feeling there's probably a few people watching that they're not familiar with that.
The state health department was given oversight according to the language of State Question 788. That law was written by the people and through a petition process was put on the ballot and it passed. But the Board of Health, which had to approve some basic framework rules, they decided to go far beyond their constitutional authority And even when the chief counsel said you can't do that, they went ahead and put this rule. One of them, for instance, was no smokable form. Well, that didn't make sense because you could tell by the language it was intended, because they said that pipes and bongs are no longer paraphernalia, right? So that's contrary. But the real big thing was when they said every dispensary has to be operated at all times by a licensed pharmacist that is knowledgeable in all cannabis medicines. Well, there is no such thing. None of the pharmacy schools in the state have any training in it, much less any certification in it. And it was a poison pill to keep any dispensary from ever opening, and they knew that. But it was amongst other people. I'm only going to name Chelsea Church here as somebody being looked into, because the online news service NonDoc actually published the text messages between her and the chief counsel of the health department. And again, Prater did nothing about that, nothing that we know of. So
Yeah.
that's a problem. And I think David Prater has some questions that he needs to answer. I don't think that he's a suspect in this, but I think it's important that we get what information he has so we can make our best decision on whether or not it's been properly investigated.
That is just crazy. So
Yeah.
where should people look for information that's coming out on this?
Great. Well, the website, the people that's part of this, it's called grandjuryjustice.com. They have a sign-up page. They're particularly looking for shops, offices, businesses in the Oklahoma City metro area that would like to gather petitions. And already a number of dispensaries have reached out to them and said, yeah, we'd love to. You know the dispensary. But
Oh,
it's not just them. It's not just them. Again, we're talking about Epic. We're talking about some sexual misconduct issues. So there's some, particularly some women's groups are concerned about this. Some domestic violence advocates for reform and protecting of that. They're interested in it. And you know what? People of all stripes. This is a non-partisan effort. There are Democrats and libertarians involved, certainly Republicans. And, one activist said to me, it's important that Republicans step up when Republican administrations need to be questioned, because if we don't, then we're no different than the Democrats of the 1980s and 90s that were so corrupt that it led to Republicans taking over the state government.
Yeah. Okay, so it's grandjuryjustice.com. Okay.
Yes.
We're going to take a break and we will be right back.
All right.
Introducing all new, safe, natural relief. A cannabinoid-rich, clarity and focus formula with 17 essential supplements. When it matters most, you've got a job to do. Anxiety isn't an option. Programmed to keep you moving. A product exclusively manufactured for Active Duty RX by Cantech Labs.
Hey everybody, Todd Tucker here, and everyone who knows me knows I love to read a great book, and right now I'm reading this incredible novel by local author Richard Engel. All you have to do is go to LastAmericanPresident.com and save big right now on this book. The Last American President is a story about political intrigue, romance, betrayal set against the backdrop of the dissolution of the United States of America. It's great reading, and when you go to LastAmericanPresident.com, LastAmericanPresident.com, use the promo code OTU, you're going to save money. And not only that, but half the price comes back to OTU. So half the proceeds from this book come back so you can watch great programming like you see on the OTU Media Network every day. LastAmericanPresident.com. I highly recommend this book. Read it today.
Welcome back to Me, Myself, and Liberty, and I have David Vann with me. He is joining me remotely from Tulsa. And so before our breaking news segment, we were talking about your time on the dark side when you were a Democrat.
Yes.
Okay. So since you've had the experience on the dark side, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So do you have any insight into what's going on right now in our country? I know we're dealing with it in the state too. The state is kind of a different situation, but in the country, this vast divide that there is. Tell me what you think about that.
You know, it's really more an urban versus rural divide. If you notice, the big metropolitan cities are by nature going to be more liberal. That's just when you have people living on top of you and underneath you, then you think you have more legitimate reason to control how they live. And that just translates into saying, well, I want to make the government make you live the way I want to live. And, you know, if nothing else, then somebody moves next door to you and they have every right to, but now all of a sudden your property value is dropped 20 grand, 200 grand, whatever, based on something like that. You think now that you have a right to tell them what they can and cannot do on their property, or what color paint is on their house, things like that. So I'm just saying, you're always going to have that rural and urban thing, and it's going to get bigger. So having said that, I was just in Minnesota last week. It was a state that Trump almost won. It has 88 counties. 80 of the 88 counties went for Trump.
Wow.
Only eight went for Clinton, but those were the big metropolitan ones, the Twin Cities area. And consequently, she won by about 1%. You know, it's a vastly different place. You've got your Ilhan Omars down in the Twin Cities, and you got, you know, Keith Ellison, you know, and you just got a lot of hostile, you know, pushing the envelope, George Soros type people. And George Soros' money's probably involved too. But the rest of the state, I'm seeing so many staunch, lifelong Democrats up there move to the Republican Party. And probably the most significant example is when I was growing up, way up in northern Minnesota, what we call the North Shore, the Arrowhead region, northern Minnesota, right along Lake Superior. That's Iron Range. That's iron ore is the economy there, just like oil's the economy here. When Trump first came into office and he put a tariff on imported steel, the Democrat legislator up there, Rick Nolan, Rick in my family, he used to be my neighbor down the street, used to play with his kids. Okay. So Rick, he strongly supported Trump on that because, I mean, Trump just saved their economy.
Oh yeah.
And then he retired. He was, you know, getting up there, his upper, I think he's 80 now. And a Republican just took over the seat that was the most staunchly Democrat seat in Minnesota. So you're seeing this all over. Trump is just totally taking over anything that's not a massive urban area. So here's what I'm saying. Watch on tomorrow night. Trump is doing a live rally from Minneapolis, and what makes this a first of its kind is Trump already did a rally up in Duluth along the North Shore, and that's Trump country. He also went down to Rochester, you know, which is not as big of a metropolitan area. In the same way, he didn't go to St. Louis, Missouri. He went to Cape Girardeau. If you notice, Trump's been doing that. He hasn't taken on that big, liberal, monstrous, you know, local city government that's all liberal until tomorrow night. And they just hit him with a $500,000 law enforcement services fee. With that, he fought back and won. They were trying to cancel him for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And
they're going to do everything they can.
Here's the cool thing. Now, Oklahoma's a right to work state. They can't make you join a union. In Minnesota, they can, or you get fired. The police force in in Minneapolis, is unionized, and the police federation there was told by the mayor, you don't show up at that rally in uniform or I'll fire you. Now, they showed up for a Clinton event. They showed up, I'm talking about Bill Clinton when he was president, for Obama when he was president, and that. But all of a sudden, they changed the rules when it's a Republican. So what the labor union did, they could see corruption, and they have to uphold the law. So it insults their professionalism. They decided to issue 300 T-shirts for their cops that says "Cops for Trump," a labor union, a liberal labor union. Yeah. So anyway, now get this. They went viral. They're now selling tens of thousands of them all over the country that have the Minnesota silhouette, and it says "Cops for Trump." That's just a little bit of an anecdotal picture of how so many people who normally would not vote for a conservative Republican are saying, this is ridiculous. The left has gone too far. We're going with Trump. That's a cool thing.
Great. I'm going to have to find that picture. That's funny.
Yeah. I'll send it to you.
I'll have to look for that. I'm sure it'll be all over tomorrow. Well, all over the fake news. Who knows? Who knows if they'll show it or not? Okay. So along the lines of the vast divide. So I was talking to a friend. It was kind of an interesting conversation about why Republicans are, it seems like we are harder on our own within our own party than we are on the people on the other side, if that makes sense. It's like, it's almost like, well, we accept that Democrats are, pro-choice and that they're for tax hikes and this and that. But then the minute somebody on our side, isn't 100% on board with something, then we attack them.
That does happen, doesn't it?
It's just
and it's
crazy.
Unfortunate. Well, like, it comes from this. When you have an expectation of somebody and they don't meet that, you feel hurt by them. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's their fault. They make a commitment, they don't keep it, right? But sometimes it's our own fault when we get hurt because we made an unreasonable expectation, something they never said they would hold up. And so, it's a problem, and we just have to decide, are we willing to take half a loaf or give up the whole loaf to the other side by us not supporting somebody who maybe, in order to represent a district and follow what the constituents want, isn't able to go with us on every bit of our own agendas, so it's a tricky deal. And more than anything, we have a right to expect honesty. And we had this happen in Broken Arrow, some special elections in the last 2 years. We lost some great people like David Brumbaugh was a great legislator. And a fellow ran who's a former school board member, a former Tulsa cop, and he told us, he says, I'm not going to go with you on all your agenda. And, he ended up winning. His name's Ross Ford. And, we have to commend Ross. You didn't lie to us. You told us what you believed. And, you're with us on a number of the issues. He's a big Trump supporter, and that, but, he went for the teacher pay raise. That's what he campaigned on. So, this is a tough deal. As passionate as we are and need to be, we have to realize that, in order for us to be viable in every district, we have to meet them at the point where they're willing to accept somebody from our team.
Yeah. And sometimes, it's like some of these, like how the district that Willard Lindsay was running for, it's like, we need a Republican there. We need a Republican there. So, but so the last thing on that, because I know we're getting ready to have to take a break. So the issue that always comes to mind on this divide within the party, and this is because we all have our own thing that's personal to us. For me, it's always the pro-life issue. And the reason why is like I think I'm about as pro-life as you can get. I know that the abolishment movement, I mean, I am all for, I would love that. That would be the ideal situation. The problem is, and I know there are probably gonna be people out there, the trolls are gonna start and they're gonna be in my own party, but The problem
No,
with it,
people upset with you, not
yeah,
Leslie.
I
You're too
know. Yeah, I'm too nice. That's right.
Yeah.
No, but it's like I am, the ideal situation would be we abolish abortion. That's what I
Sure.
want, right?
Absolutely.
But I also
Yeah.
recognize that if we can make some kind of progress, if we can make some kind of, let's take it. It's like, did you ever see the movie Any Given Sunday with Al Pacino?
Oh, parts of it. I've heard
Okay.
it's an amazing story.
It is. Okay, so there is this point in the movie where it's towards the end, and of course it's that famous scene, and he's talking about that football is a game of inches. That
Yes.
you have to fight for every single inch. You have
Yes.
to claw for the inch. You have to be willing to die for the inch in order to get to where you need to be, right?
Yes.
As Republicans, we don't do that. We're terrible at it. We won't take the inch. We're like, no, I want the 10-yard line, or it's all or nothing. I want the touchdown, or screw it, I'm not participating.
Yeah, and
it's
yeah.
frustrating.
Yeah, and our friend Don Spencer, with OK2A, I know he's been a great friend of your show and has been on
Yes.
several times. His people and his predecessor, Tim Gillespie, spoke to my groups and said, we believe in incrementalism. We will take it an inch at a time, yard at a time. And one of my favorite allies up here, Lori Gracie, great person. We were talking about a mutual friend of ours whom we admire, but she said, the only problem is he thinks you have to throw it deep to the end zone on every play, even when you're on your own 10-yard line. And that's just not practical. Now, I know this is just an anecdote. I'm agreeing with you, on the principle of it. And here's our problem. Sometimes we disagree with our allies on strategy. And sometimes people will confuse a difference in strategy for a difference in values. And we need to not separate ourselves based on just having different strategies. It doesn't make one of us more conservative than the other.
Yeah, no, that is a very good point. I like the way that you put that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
All right.
Hey everybody, Todd Tucker here. Are you tired of Big Mobile making deals with dirty DC politicians to amplify liberals and silence conservatives like you? Do you want the same quality of service that you get from your current provider without supporting leftist, anti-American subversives like Kendra Horn and Nancy Pelosi? Well, Patriot Mobile can help you, and they can make a great deal. Ask what Patriot Mobile can do for you, and ask what Patriot Mobile can do for your country. Call Patriot Mobile today at 877-367-7524. 877-367-7524. Be a patriot. Join Patriot Mobile. Hello, basket of deplorables, ladies, gentlemen, those who are undecided. Todd Tucker back at the bunker, where I belong. And we want you to join us here at OTU Media. Become a patron, a Patreon member. If you want true conservative messaging and not the same old corporate filtered news of Oklahoma, this is the place to be. Become a supporter, a soldier, a sergeant, a co-producer, even a sponsor. True conservatism lives here at OTU Media. Go to patreon.com/OTU Media, patreon.com/OTU Media. This is where conservatism lives, and the fight is just beginning.
Welcome back. Wait, this has gone by fast, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So one thing that we wanted to make sure we talk. I've got a few other questions for you, but I want citizen journalism. That's something that's important to you. So talk about that.
Absolutely. Well, in 2012, just by an ironic fluke of things, I had worked several presidential campaign primary seasons, going back to Pat Buchanan, 92, 96, Phil Graham, and then Mike Huckabee. And all of a sudden, the Santorum people contacted me and said, we'd like you to be our state coordinator. Like, wow, that fell on my lap. And, it's just not going to ever happen again. You just don't, it's an amazing thing. And we were successful. We won, so I'm 1-0 on statewide races. What do you know? I think I'll retire. And so I did. I retired from running campaigns. And what I noticed is definitely a big need is grassroots citizen journalism, the communication needs in politics. You don't want it to be a bunch of slick ads by politicians framing the issues all the time, because sometimes that's not in the voters' best interest. And so I started something. In fact, Michael Bates, who's been a mentor and a great example to me, he was a great blogger back 20 years ago or so. And we were at an event with Oklahoma Council of Public Affairs and Americans for Prosperity, and some events had happened, and people say, how do you find out about this? It was a crazy vote in our legislature. Well, I'll tell you, it was national popular vote, and we were freaked out. And so I said during a break, guys asking, how do we keep up with what's going on at the Capitol? And in the course of things, I said, you know what? I've got this website that I used for the campaign last year for Santorum. It's called SoonerPolitics. Why don't I just turn that into an aggregate feed of all the bloggers around the state, including you, Michael Bates, and including OCPA and Mike McCarville. And listen, it was a vast spectrum. If you believe everything on the SoonerPolitics website, there's something wrong with you. I don't believe it. You need lots of perspectives. That's healthy. And when we try to shut down certain elements, and I mean, I've had plenty of people, names you would know, that have come up and threatened me and demanded either I do this or I'm going to, get kicked out of that, this and the other. And my problem is, I am a platform. Our SoonerPolitics is a platform. It's not a media producer other than my own blogs, because I participate. And but anyway, so I have like Fred Morgan with the Oklahoma Chamber of Commerce. I've got his on there. I've got Fount Holland's blog whenever he does blog. Some of these people blog for a while and they stop. And I've got people all over. I got OPAC. I've got, individuals like Michael Bates, just a lot of people, Kenny Bob Tapp, a bunch of people. And this is healthy. You need to have good constructive dialogue and agree to disagree where you need to, whether it's about values, whether it's about strategy. And so I'm doing that, and I'm going to continue to do that. And I'm hoping more people, like Moto, your producer over there off screen, he's one of my heroes because he gets it. And I cheer him on all I can. I don't get paid a dime for this. It doesn't even cover the web hosting fees, what little advertising I have. But it's not a moneymaker for me. For me, it's my citizenship. It's my activism.
So. No, I think that's great. And one thing that I've noticed on the page is that you are definitely about free speech. And I think that's great. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And we're big people. We can be adults and we can agree to disagree. I don't like when it turns to negative attacks on personalities, insulting their weight, their looks, their heritage, or ethnicity. None of that. No. Here's the thing. I don't like that either. If I have a problem with somebody and it just persists, I'm going to take them off. But I'm not going to start censoring their individual stuff because the readers are smarter than that. They can figure it out.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. Okay, so any quick thoughts? We have to be quick on this one because I've got like 4 questions I want to ask you, maybe 5. So CD5 race, any thoughts on that? There's a lot of people in it.
Well, the one person everybody was expecting last fall to enter in was Mick Cornett, the former mayor of Oklahoma City, and he's the only name I haven't seen. And not that I'm complaining, because I'm not a big fan of Mick Cornett's politics and policies, but I'm seeing a lot of great citizens step up. Some people who have elective office experience and some who don't. And I wanna see lively forums and debates, and I hope to help out with that. I'd love to be a panelist on some of those, and really find out who these people are and what their values are. Because up here in Tulsa, we had a guy running 6 years ago. Nobody gave it any expectations to him. It was Jim Bridenstine. And he turned out to be the best congressman the state has had in the last 40 years that I know of. And now he runs NASA. Before that, he was running this little operation out at the north end of the airport in a metal building. He called it the Tulsa Air and Space Museum. And I always thought it was a joke. Now he's running NASA. Who knew?
Who knew?
Yeah.
Okay. So we kind of talked about a little bit of the infighting in the party and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to combine two questions. So the infighting in the party, and then what advice do you have for just the Republican Party in our state?
Sure. Well, I was one of the first to come on board and actually call for the chairmanship candidacy of David McLean. He and I have worked together for a long time. I've been to his house and stuff. I know what his weaknesses and I know what his strengths are. Well, I think I know some of them, okay, on both of those lists. And, he and Mike Turner, I think, can be a good team. Don't think I'm seeing the best result of that right now, but I haven't lost hope. I haven't lost confidence. I want those two to work together. In fact, I told both of them just last month, you guys need to be working together more. We've got one of the best mentors, because I told McLean, one of his weaknesses, I told him way back last December, is he doesn't have a lot of experience in running political parties. But I said, listen, if Matt Pinnell's willing to help you, there is nobody in the whole nation who's better at knowing how to run a party than Matt Pinnell, because the RNC put him in charge of all 50 state parties. He's that good. So we have the tools if we'll work together, if we'll pick up the phone and talk to each other and, and do that. And so the opportunities for unity and for advancement this year is great, especially with Governor Stitt. And yeah, I'll answer that question. You haven't asked it yet, but I think it's on your list.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to expect from this guy, just like I didn't know what to expect from Trump. Neither of them had political office experience, but in both cases, I'm pleasantly surprised. In fact, I'm going to quote my good friend Dr. Everett Piper of Oklahoma Wesleyan. He said, "Crow never tasted so good," because I didn't support either of them up front. No. And I'm eating crow, but I'm loving it, right?
Yes.
I'm getting good stuff. Good stuff.
And that's the right thing, is that when it does work out, we should all say, just stop just get by. Let's make it happen, man. Just get on the same team.
You know what I want to say too? When your legislator casts a good vote, brag about them. Get on social media, tag them so they see it, because they'll listen to you a lot more if they see that positive reinforcement. It's worked with my legislators. It'll work with any of them. It really will. They'll want to please you if they know that there is a benefit of pleasing you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, right quick, I want to tell people where to find you, because we are getting ready to be done with this part of it. So Facebook.com, SoonerPolitics, right?
Yes. Yes.
And then, also 3D Politics. So that's your other one. Is there anywhere else people should look for you? And I'll make sure that we put these, we show these links too.
No, 3D Politics is actually part of my partnership with OTU, your publication here, and Modo. We decided we needed to be doing something up in Tulsa. You've got your great studio there, and we've gotten together and put together a studio that right now our flagship production, I think, is 3D Politics, but there are other people getting involved, and really we need to see what OTU is doing, expand to a statewide effort. And I want to be a part of what you're doing, continue to do that. It's a great thing. Definitely.
You're doing. Yeah, it is. It really is. Okay, anything else you want the audience to know before we say goodbye?
It's been great talking to you. You know, I've tried to recruit you for other offices, and I'm not. I am not going to stop. You have the sense that you have don't cut me off now. I'm flattering you. You have the sensibilities and the temperament, and you need to understand that a lot of people listen to you and value your perspective.
Well, thank you. I like to hear that. Now say that again for my husband right fast and my kids. All right. I appreciate you joining us, and I hope you will join me again.
Yeah, all right. It's great talking to you.
Thank you, David.